Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you know, we are discussing informal sector. Today we will try to know what is informal sector and how it's contribute to our economy. As you know, the informal sector contribution is increasing every day, and it has also gone and sea change after the globalizations. So we will try to look at the various aspects of informal sector, and for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio Dr. Satish Kumar. He teaches political science and is a known columnist writer on social economic issue in different newspapers and journals. So I hope his knowledge and experience will help us to understand the informal sectors in a new perspective. So on your behalf, I welcome Dr. Kumar for EduSet lecture. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will try to identify the status of informal sector in India in specific terms, and how does it promote the Indian economy, which is for the last few years is going to be, and it has people, the leaders of the other world recognize that is the second fastest economy of the world, and going to be the fourth largest economy of the world. But its contributions in its speed come from the informal sector. But the status of informal sector, not only in India, but throughout the world, is very disturbing. The kind of security in which it covers for the larger section of the society is very poor. The legal as well as social safety nets for the informal workers are almost negligible. During the course, we will also discuss about the Social Security Act of 2008, how it has been an attempt by the government to identify the issues concerning the informal sector, informal workers. So, for a better understanding of the informal sector, let us differentiate between the formal as well as the informal sector. Formal sector, which comes whatever the way it has been run, it's a procedure, it's a benefit, and almost everything is mentioned in the Indian rules, and the budget accumulation, the way the budget is being analyzed, it comes under that parameter. But the percentage of formal sector in India is less than 10%. If we analyze in the number of the workers in India. But the numbers of informal sector in India is almost more than 90%, 93% almost. The same kind of situations, more or less prevalent in the developing world, whether it is Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, or Southeast Asia. The share in the field of labor market which come from the informal sector. Then what is the informal sector? The informal sector, to have a better understanding, it is a self-motivated contributions by an individual or by a group of individuals which is run by a family. Let's take an example of vegetable vendor. A vendor picks up the vegetables from the mandi and sells door to door in the particular area. In his professions, it may be possible that his family members, his daughter, son, wife, and other could be involved. Likewise, there are many other factors in which this society where we live, we take the advantage of the labor of that particular individual, comes under the informal sector. We see Rediwala, we see a different kind of, we in every city, in every colony, you might have seen the labor chowk, where a large number of laborers, they gather and they sell themselves for that particular day on certain price. People, those who need them, they hire them for a day or few days, and they pay them accordingly. So they also come under the informal sector. There could be some differences if we see the socio-economic factors at the village level and at the urban level. But more or less their status are same. What are the major problems of the informal sector they face? There are a number of problems. If we analyze, there are economic problems, social security, legal problems, and irrespective of other problems which continue to haunt a marginalized section of the society. So we will try to come one by one, and we also try to see the existing schemes which are being run by the government of India, by the state governments, and how does it address the problems of the informal sector. So for the understanding of the informal sector, it is very huge and large, and its contribution to the economy is immense, but their social and economic status of that particular group is very poor. And why it is poor, we will also try to identify the reasons. We might have heard about the microfinance. We will also try to identify how the an NGO or social society, social organizations, they try to address the problems of the informal sector. How does the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh become the largest bank of not only the Bangladesh but in South Asia, and that is the minimal contributions by the workers of the informal sector. In India, SEVA, Self-Employed Women Associations, is another glaring examples in which the contributions of the informal workers make it a huge organizations. So these are the factors which we will try to come one by one. But let us first identify the major problems of the social sector, informal sector. When we try to identify the problems, we see that the person who works from 7 a.m. to till 9 a.m. 9 p.m., then there is always a likelihood of that person become old before his age. There is no need to identify and check out the existing malaise of of our socio-economic situations. The dai, the maid which come to your house, you might have seen. There is a cycle of there is a cycle of poverty. A young maid come to your house at the age of 22 to 23. She picked up so many works. She goes to many houses. When she has a little daughter of 7 to 8 years, she introduces her daughter to other family members, and gradually she also picks up and contributes in helping out her mother. And within a couple of years, the daughter becomes a full-fledged maid. Their dieting system, their other input which they require are almost missing. So what happens? By the age of 40 or 45, the maid reaches, she becomes the victim of a major disease, and her daughter adopts the same professions which she has already been trained at the age of 7 to 8. And this cycle of poverty continues for generations. This is one example which I have given you. In the same, in the industries, are the daily wages workers, whether it is urban vendors or the people, those who are in the informal sector, they face the same kind of problems. Their existence are always at risk. So the major problem is economy, and it is not only the problem of disease and sickness. The problem of economic insecurity. You might, if you visit the labor chalk where the laborers conglomerate for being sold, every day you might have seen a few laborers, they have not been picked up. So their service was not being used. The vendors, there is a competition among the vendors. In a particular road and lane, there was only one vendor. Now there are more than 3-4 vendors in the same lane. They sell the vegetables. So their vegetables are not being sold. And as we all know that the informal workers, they do the business of quite often of perishable items. Means if vegetables like a tomato or mushrooms or this kind of vegetables is being not sold by late evening, then what will happen? They do not have the cold storage. They do not have the system where they can freeze and protect their goods. So by tomorrow morning it will become useless. So it is also a threat of losing the money. We will also, when we will discuss about the factors of globalization and liberalizations, we will also identify how the big companies are hampering the interest of the informal sector. But let us see that the major threat of the informal sector is economics, and that begins with the job security. When we are in the formal sector, we have a number of guarantees. We take the advantage of number of schemes which are being run by the government. We have the job security, we have the confidence, and social and economic factors are also in favor of the formal sector. But informal sector, they almost miss out from this advantage. They remain standing on the risk. So any minor push can eliminate the life of not only one individual but complete hog of the family, and they come under distress. So If this problem is to be addressed properly, then central as well as state government need to regulate economic security to the individual. Forget about the social security. Social security comes later. When there is no economic security of existence, then they are not in position to invest even a rupee on the social security, or needless to talk about the insurance, another. They say that it is for the rich people. It is for the people, those who have lot of money. So the problem is economics. The problem is of regular getting the job, getting the work at the right time. If it is not done, then they remain at risk. Second problem, which is also related with the economy of that informal sector, is social insecurity. They live in a society as we do, but quite number of times this society is remain to be hostile to the informal sector. They always visualize and perceive the workers of informal sector with suspicions. They are doing not a proper job. We are giving too much money to the worker. They take advantage of others. Even if you see, if you hire a labor for your family for a day, then we always want to see him working from 9 to 6 p.m. Even for 5 minutes, if he takes break, we become so aggressive. Hey, what are you doing? Please go and work. That shows the mindset of our society. And it happens because they are ultimately at very adverse situations. They are facing the adverse socio-economic conditions. If you do not hire, if they do not behave properly, you may not hire him next time. So this kind of problems which remain in their mind, and that also affect the workers. Third problem, as we all know that if you analyze the informal sector, we identify that it is children and women centric. In majority of the people, those who are involved in informal sectors are women and children, and they are more vulnerable. They have certain limitations. A child cannot lift more than 15 to 20 kgs of weight, but sometimes he is being forced by employer to do so. Women are more vulnerable because of the different other reasons. Sometimes they are also physically exploited by the employer. So what I am trying to focus how vulnerable are the informal sector in India, and later on we will try to also discuss the positive factors of informal sector in India, how the rules being framed by the government of India, and how does what are the loopholes, what are the major factors which prevent the government in successfully implementing these laws. So we will also come after that. But for the basic understanding of the informal sector, we should be very clear that their problem is economics. Their problem is job opportunities. If they have the job, they can earn, they are willing to work. They are very hard working. They can migrate from one place to another. You also see that because of the lack of work, quite a number of people, they migrate from poorer states to the prospering cities of India. And this is another problem which has generated in Indian socio-economic milieu. Tribal people, they pick up the woods and leaves which are fallen from the tree, and they sell it in the market, and they earn less than 20 to 25 rupees a day. Is it possible that an individual who is earning less than 20 rupee can survive in this country? The way eating goods and other things have become costly, and it is costly for them as well. So how is it possible that the poorest of the poorer can live and survive? I can give you one of the very glaring examples, very interesting examples. As we all know that under the schemes of the government, government shops are being opened in each and every block and of India, and the food and eatable items are being distributed to the poorest of the poorer on the basis of red card, green card and other. So below the poverty line, and below the poverty line there is also two categories. The extreme poor, they identify by the assets of an individual and family. So what happens? While interacting with the many laborers in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and Bihar, they say, why don't you buy the eatable items from the government shops, which is based on the subsidies, so it is very cheap. They say it is very difficult for us to buy. Why? Because from morning 7 to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. they are out of the house and they are in the different fields. They are in the workplace. So it is not feasible for them to miss out the work and buy the items. The second problem, they analyze that they have the system to buy 5 kg of rice at a time. And 5 kg rice means more than 50 to 60 rupees. So we do not have so much money at a time to buy the rice or sugar or whatever are available in that shops. So the schemes, the benefits, the subsidies which are being provided by the government are not picked up and utilized by the communities for which this scheme was made. Then how can we see and how do we expect that the poorest of the poorer would come out and feel happy? So the economist could analyze this fact that glazing India, signing India which is being seen in Delhi and NCR and other cosmopolitan and metropolitan cities do not exist in far-flung areas where the major chunk of the population, more than 73% of the population, they live. Even in the cities where the larger section of the city, which is populated by an extremely poorest of the poor people in India. They are not equally happy as the 10 to 15% population of this country are. So the division are very clear cut. The signing India is for the 10% population, for the 10% population of this country, but 90% still feel dismayed. They are disturbed, and we will be surprised to know that in the mountainous terrain, the tribal people, those who come to pick up the work, they come down from 2 to 5 kilometers from the mountain to the field, and again they take the burden of going to the mountain of 5 to 7 kilometers on the mountain in the night, because there is no work in the mountain, there is no development. The work is done on the paper. For majority of the people, the tribal people or scheduled caste, or the people who are extremely poor, they have to walk down from the top to the field to pick up the work. So is it possible for an individual to work 8 to 10 hours and again walk for another 3 hours to reach their house? And what will happen to the person after 5 to 6 years? So these are the challenges, these are the threats, and these are the ground reality of our country, in which the signing India of the industries, the name of the country which is being sold inside and outside are being contributed by the informal sector, which constitute more than 93% of our workforce. So it has to be seen in that perspective. Now let us see threat perceptions for the informal sector workers. Natural calamities. In any of the natural calamities, whether it is a Latur earthquake in which thousands of the people were being killed, or it is a flood in Bihar which occurred 3 years ago, which was categorized as a Kosi episode, in which number of villages were being swept away by the current, and it converted lakhs of the people homeless. And what happened after that? If you visit the sites, you might have seen on the TV, but you visit the site, you will find that number of people, they are living homeless even after the 3 years of this natural calamity. The state, our central governments were not able to meet the needs of the people of affected area. Still the people are dying of the implications, social, medical as well as economic implications of that natural calamity. So it is very disheartening that one of the threat is natural calamity. The second threat is migrations. As we all know that migration in India is taking place in large numbers. And it could be seen, the ugly scene of the migrations, if we visit the railway stations during the Holi or Durga Puja or any other festival which are being celebrated in India. Thousands and lakhs of the people are thronged into the platform, and they are being sandwiched in the general compartment of the train like vegetables and animals, and they travel in the same conditions from one station to another, and they migrate from their hometown to major cities. So when an individual migrates from his hometown to cities, he loses many factors. He loses the shelter, he loses the social security, he loses the family protections. And we all are aware of this fact. The deaths and killings of the workers from Bihar and Jharkhand in the different parts of the country are being reported. Many people, they sleep on the pavement. A drunken driver in the late night thrash and kill the workers, those who are homeless. It comes in the newspaper quite often, and you might have read. There is a local community, they also target the migratory laborers in different parts of the country on the name of regional identity. Why an individual migrates from his hometown or home city or home estate to other areas? It is sheer lack of opportunities, job opportunities. Or the political or socio-economic situations are not conducive for an individual to adjust and run his family. So, in a very incompulsive situations, they migrate from their hometown to other part of the country. So, another threat for informal sector is migrations. Third major threat, which has recently been visualized, is the factor of globalizations, liberalization or privatizations. The symptoms which are being seen in this country could be easily identified. You might have seen the Reliance, the biggest private sector in India, is selling vegetables. Many other companies, they have come in the field to sell the green vegetables, which was one of the prime areas of the informal workers, urban vendors. Not only the vegetables, but other necessary items which are being sold by the informal workers through their families, and their economy was based on that contributions, which was being also hijacked by the major companies of India. This is one symptom which might have seen in India, which is taking place at large scale. How is it possible that uh, almost negligible in terms of economic capacity can meet the challenge of multi-billion company like Reliance and other? So who is to be blamed? When we talk about the social security, when we talk about the welfare of this country, the welfare of this country that advocates about equal distributions of income. As we can see and read our constitutions, it describes this fact that the concentration of wealth should not be in the hands of the few. Gandhian ideology also advocates the same fact. But what happened after 60 to 63 years since independence? The line from poor to rich is getting larger and murkier. The rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming more poorer. It has generated a number of social evils as well. The petty crimes in the cities and the problems of Naxalism in the different parts of the country is also a symptom of this system. When an individual feel that this state does not exist for me, this state does not do anything for me, and the primary responsibility of the state is to provide economic as well as social security to each and every individual of this country, to the last man of the village. But it has not been done. It is not taking place. They remain at the risk. Medical facilities for them, if they are capable of meeting the price of the medicines or the price of the treatment, those who are only likely to be treated in the hospitals. Forget about the kind of the medical system which are existing in the country could be easily visualized. The kind of the educational system which are cropping up in the last few years could be easily visualized. The schools which are run by the government, PWD and other, if you can see the building, we can go and inside the schools. And these schools are in the cities, which has the media glaze and other. So they are a bit conscious. If you go to the villages where the children of the workers, they study, their situations are really pathetic. While interacting with one of the laborer in Jharkhand, I asked him, why don't you send your 5 children to the school? He said politely that, why should I send my children to the schools? I did. My oldest son was in school for 3 years. And next to my oldest son, he was also in school for almost 3 years. But in the 3 complete years, they were unable to learn even the basic alphabets in Hindi or in English. Forget about a proper education. Even they fail to learn alphabet, then why do I send my children to this school? If they remain at home, they can contribute me or their mother in generating incomes for the family. So this is the existing social and economic structures which are taking place in India. Whether it is educational system or whether the medical system or any other system which covers the largest section of the society. So the concept of the welfare state, the concept where the state intervenes, where the state takes the responsibility of meeting the basic needs of the people, are largely being ignored. And it has not, even the schemes were being made, it has not been very successful. It has not been translated into action. So this is a very pathetic conditions for the informal sectors of this country. There are a number of very disturbing data. One of the data is more than 80% electricity of this country is being consumed by less than 10% population of this country. Almost 80 to 85% power is being used by the city dwellers, those who live in luxury, those who run 3 to 4 ACs in their one house. And there are a number of people, those who do not have the kerosene oil to lighten up their dark houses. So these are the social and economic situations of the larger section of the society. Now, who are the people who have been addressing this problem? There are a number of international organizations, there are a number of national organizations. They have targeted to alleviate the status of the poorer section of the society. They also tried to motivate the civil society organization to look into their problems and try to solve them. And one of the very interesting and successful story for the informal sector, which has taken place also in India and in Bangladesh, that is the Grameen Bank. Professor Yunus, Nobel laureate, you might have been aware of this name. What he did, and it was a magical wave which enwrapped a larger section of the workers of the society. What he has evolved, the system of microfinance. What is microfinance? If an individual earns maybe 120 rupees in a day, then he is supposed to deposit at least 10 rupees every day through a cooperative to particular bank. And in this group, the group is being divided maybe into 10 to 12 people. So the responsibility of one group leader is to accumulate the 10 rupees from all his 10 fellow beings and deposit it at the bank. And likewise, hundreds of that kind of group is being made. So what happens? A large amount is being collected from the same people for which this scheme was being made. And when the need arises for a particular individual or a family, the amount is being given to that individual or family. As we all aware of this fact that money lenders in India are widespread. They exploit the poorer extremely. Till 80s, there was no formal bank which were willing to lend the informal sector into their system, because they do not have the economic security, and nobody was willing to become the partner or become the guarantor of the informal workers. So they perceive that he may take the money from the bank and may not be in a position to deposit it in the requisite time. So bank will be at loss. So they were not in the chain of the formal financing system. But this microfinance, a new initiative, innovative ideas were being implemented in the different parts of the country. And India also, the SEWA, Self-Employed Women Associations, has developed. And now the many organizations in different states are working on this formula. They are creating self-help group, a group of 10 to 12 people, and that kind of group, hundreds of group are being made, and they developed cooperatives, and through the cooperatives they generate incomes, and that income is being used for the benefit of that particular family or individual. And they also lend that individual who need the money at the lowest interest rate. So here the protection is being created. This protection is being created not by the state, by among themselves through the coordinations of civil society organizations. So this is one of the component which is being addressed. But what is the role of the state? Is it possible that civil society organization can meet this kind of huge demands of the 90% workers of this country? It is not. And that is why you might have heard about Narega. Now it has been converted into Marega. Scheme was started. And this scheme was started because the most important factor of the informal sector is the lack of opportunities, is the lack of job. They do not have job, and that is why the problem begins from there. And it covers many other part of their lives. So, social insecurity, medical insecurity, and other natural calamities. There are many other factors which come and include into their grief and sorrows, and that increase in volumes. So if they have the proper safety net of getting the job at the right time and consistently, then their half of the problem is being solved. So Narega was an attempt, and it has been a number of case studies. In spite of the way system is being regulated and the system is being implemented in the different parts of the country, a different kind of reports talk about the different problems. There was some malpractices are being involved, but more or less this scheme is being hugely debated and realized by the experts that it has definitely an attempt to address the basic problems of the informal workers. But if we talk about their other parts of the security, then where are the states? When we are in the formal sectors, wherever we work, whether it is the government run or autonomous bodies or the public sector or private sector, there is coverage of risk. If any accident takes place, a certain amount will be given to the dependent of the family. But does it happen to the informal workers? If they die on the road while crossing, there is no amount is being paid to that dependent of the individual. So the wage earner's death cultivates miseries and problems for the complete family, and they are extremely vulnerable. So these are the factors, these are the loopholes, these are the prevalent threat which need to be addressed to identify and mitigate the 90% or more than 90% workforce of this country that is in the informal sectors. If we compare the data of Indian data with other Western countries, we can very easily identify that their positions, their conditions are much better than what we have in India. Even sub-Saharan Africa, where the poverty is much more than in India, the conditions of the informal workers are not as pathetic as we have. We have the pathetic condition because of the certain reasons as we try to identify. One is the corruption, as we all know that when the large amount of the schemes of any social welfare is being misutilized from the top hierarchy of the bureaucratic system, then the targeted groups take a very minimal amount of that schemes, whether it is any insurance schemes for welfare of the children or women. So corruption is one of the corrupt practices is one of the main problems in translating the government schemes of the informal sector. The second, globalization has become another threat. The kind of new jobs is being developed in the last few years that make the informal workers out of the race. Vegetable vendors, which I've given you an example, is one example where the vendors used to sell door-to-door green vegetables, which was being hijacked by the largest private sector of this country, Reliance and many other companies. So they became jobless. Likewise, in many other sectors where the skill is needed, where their new ideas are being developed, illiterate, uneducated informal workers, they feel misfit in this race. So globalization has become another important threat for the informal workers. Natural calamities, as we discussed, has become another threat for the informal workers. Whenever earthquake takes place, whenever the flood takes place, it almost eliminates the existing system of the poorer section of the society, and it takes years to recoup from the natural calamities. So these are the threat perceptions of the informal workers which come under the informal sector, which consists more than 90% population of the country. So, in summary, we can analyze with the concept of the welfare state. The constitution makers, those who try to evolve that concentration of wealth should not be in the hands of the few. There should be a proper line, and Gandhian philosophy advocates the same. So, right-based approach of the state is being thought of by these constitution makers. Those who want to have the work, the state must provide them work, at the same time economic and social security to the extremely poorer section of the society. But unfortunately, it has not taken place in the last 63 years. And there is once again need to see the gray areas in which this informal sector is being run. We will discuss later the Social Security Act of 2008, how it has been an attempt to address the informal workers at large. Thank you.
So one way we can say that informal sector has given security to economy of the country, any country where they are working because number are growing, but they are themselves insecure.
They are definitely. So, not only in India, but other parts of the country as well, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, even the developing societies. The major chunk of the economy is based on informal workers. The Indian percentage is much higher, it is more than 90%. So, if the 90% population of the country is not being addressed by the proper schemes of the government, of the central as well as the state, then definitely the signing India, the concept of signing India is a misnomer, and it does not appeal to the people of this country.
So, well friends, as you know that they are more insecure, but the government are taking steps, and Social Security Act and different measures have been taken in the past, and more are in pipelines. So I hope in coming years the situation will improve, and something good can be done for the people working in informal sector as informal way. So with this I would like to conclude the lecture, and I thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf I thank Dr. Satish Kumar for giving such an insightful lecture on this very topic. Thank you very much.